Hello everyone. Now I have come to the third portion of my lecture, and this is on interactivity. Okay, so the very significant characteristics of new media is interactivity, which decisively sets it apart from print and broadcast. Virtually any feature of a website that requires or allows the user to become an active participant in the communication process is referred to as interactivity. It is advanced by sponsors of many web pages as well as publishers of material like interactive CD-ROMs of various kinds, from computer games to encyclopedias, as major selling point. So there are certain examples like features include navigation links. You have buttons that have to be clicked in order to move from page to page, and the reader's opinion polls that are provided on many news websites. According to the function of interactivity, interactivity itself can be classified as navigational, functional, and adaptive interactivity. Navigational interactivity, as the name suggests, is the function of such button as next page and back to top, and of scrolling menu bars in the website. Then, if we look at the functional interactivity, uh, which is usually achieved through direct mail to features, mail to links to the email addresses of stuff provided on some news sites, moderated discussion list, then bulletin board services, etc. The most complex type of interactivity is adaptive interactivity, which refers to the facility of personal customization offered by such sites as the Yahoo and even Tejpur University or any kind of websites. At its most sophisticated, so we see that a sophisticated website that incorporates adaptive interactivity, which would allow itself to adapt ideally in real time to the surfing behavior of the individual user. An example would be a site that changes itself to give salience or give a very appealing outlook to sports news and sports related advertisement on a particular user's computer screen when it senses that this user is taking a greater interest in sports news than the other areas of news. We should note that in almost every case, interactivity is achieved by the use of hyperlinks. Therefore, while hypertextuality, which is another defining characteristics of new media, is the core principle of online media, new media, interactivity can be conceived as a function of it. Since the term interactivity has become so commonplace today, most of us have an intuitive understanding of its meaning. However, it is a complex concept which calls for a formal definition. And some of the definition that go beyond surprise and novelty, but still uh, uh, do capture interactivity as bidirectionality, quick response, then user control, amount of user activity in a website or in any new media tools and platforms, then ratio of to medium user to medium activity, then feedback, transparency, then artificial intelligence, social presence, and so on. Um, we see that there are certain aspects of interactivity, and these aspects basically provides a complexity of choices available to user. So it is because of this interactivity, user can get numerous choices available for them. Then it also lead to have much effort which is to be made by users. Then responsiveness to the users, that is also another important aspect of interactivity, and it leads to or provides the ease of adding information to the interfaces. And interactivity at the same time facilitate interpersonal communication, and it also provides a facility for monitoring the use of information. So we can have further illustration of those very aspects of interactivity. The first aspect is complexity of choices, which is being available for users, since the greater the number of hyperlinks provided on a website, quite obviously the greater the range and complexity of choice available to the reader or user. As for the second aspect, which concerns effort, uh, as for example, newspaper and other printed material that do not contain annotations like footnotes and endnotes, require the minimum amount of effort from the reader. Radio and television call for slightly more effort, as viewers have to choose the station and the channel he or she would like to listen or to view. Then website requires much greater effort, the exact degree of which depends on their design actually, as the reader has to choose not only the channel, that is the website she or he would like to visit, but the particular items he or she would like to read on the chosen site, and often also the related stories and other material he or she would like to read, view, and listen to audio clips along with each story. Uh, then we see the responsiveness to the user, which is usually achieved by inviting queries from his or her site by providing email addresses to editorial and other stuff or links to the web forms on websites, and responding to queries received through all these links. As for the facilitation of interpersonal communication, providing email addresses makes communication easy between users and news site staff, and discussion forums and live chat areas perform this function between reader and staff. Uh, then we see the facility of adding information by the reader, by the listener, viewer, or user is practically non-existent in the print and broadcast media. In contrast, in some online news sites uh, or even most of the SNS allow users to add various types of information, including the announcement of births, marriage, and dates, the reviews of film, plays, and other cultural and entertainment events. So, a handful of sites actually allow readers to make a contribution to news reports and features produced by the editorial staff. And as for monitoring use, this refers to means of recording the identities of those who visit a site, and sometimes also the specific part of the site they visit. So, in addition to providing a measure of the attention a site attracts from users, such monitoring can also be used for billing the user according to his or her users details, and for programming the site's content to meet his or her interest. So interactivity is the degree to which two or more communication parties can act on each other, on the communication medium, and on the messages, and the degree to which such influences are synchronized. So we can basically focus on three types of interaction or interactivity, uh, as interactivity has been defined in many ways. Interactivity can be defined as the facility for persons and organizations to communicate directly with one another, regardless of distance or time. So, on a closer examination, we can actually focus on user machine interaction, user interaction, and user message interaction. Uh, First aspect of interaction is user or human to human communication. So we see that user interaction is most often discussed from an interpersonal communication perspective. The more that communication in a computer mediated environment resembles interpersonal communication, the more interactive the communication is. However, one problem with looking at interactivity from the angle of interpersonal communication is that it ignores the ability of a medium such as the internet to break the boundaries of traditional interpersonal communication. Not only do people no longer need to be at the same place, they do not even need to be communicating at the same time. With online translation service, people also do not need to understand each other's language to be able to communicate. So we see that human to human communication is the basic example of interactive communication, which involves two different processes. First, human to human interactivity, which is equivalent to user interactivity, and second, human to computer interactivity, which is user machine interactivity. So, that human machine interactivity is also a part of you see human to human interactivity. Human interactivity is the communication between people. Um, on the other hand, human to computer communication is the way that people communicate with new media. Human computer interaction consists of four main components, which comprises human computer task environment and machine environment. So a general model of human computer interface emphasizes the flow of information and control at the human computer interface. For example, a complex system that detect and react to human behavior are sometimes called interactive. Under this perspective, interaction includes responses to human physical manipulation like movement, body language, uh, or changes in psychological states. Um, Another instance or example I would like to cite here, that the number of inputs from user that the medium accepts and to which it responds. We are familiar with what are known as haptic inputs, like commands given by the user to the medium by manipulating certain objects, for example, knobs and buttons in case of radio and television, the mouse, joystick, touchpad in computers. Other possible types of inputs include the following, like uh, like voice and audio. Then we see the speech recognition system that allow computers to respond to voice commands. Uh, Then kinetic, that is body movements and orientation. Mm, then spatial expression and also eye movement, and these you see psychophysiological inputs like heart rate, blood pressure, muscle tension, skin resistance, and brain waves, which could be fed into computer to manage the user's mood and enhancing mediated interpersonal communication. Say provide a user with the feel of the other person's hand on hers or him, simulating a handshake. Uh, so, number and type of characteristics of the mediated environment which can be modified by user in case of website that also comprise one part of interactivity. So there are temporal ordering, order of the events within the mediated experience, then spatial organization, placement of the object, intensity like volume, brightness, color, etc., and other frequency characteristics like the size, duration, and pace of the uh, of the understanding of content which are being posted in the website. So everything comprise interactivity comprises interactivity. So we see uh, that human to machine interactivity or human to artifact communication, uh, in respect to communication between a human and an artifact. Interactivity refers to artifacts' interactive behavior as experienced by the human user. This is different from other aspects of artifact such as its visual appearances and its internal working and the meaning of the signs it might mediate. For example, the interactivity of an iPod is not its physical shape or color in terms of human to artifact communication and its so-called design, but it may also be the ability to play music or its storage capacity. So it is the behavior of user interface as experienced by its user. This includes the way you move your finger on the input wheel of iPod, the way this allows you to select a tune in the playlist, and the way you control the volume. So the term look and feel is often used to refer to the specificities of a computer system's user interface. Using this as a metaphor, the look refers to its visual design, while the feel refers to interactivity. Indirectly, this can be regarded as an informal definition of interactivity. So we see that user machine interaction emphasize on that the human interaction with computers. To be interactive, a computer system must be responsive to users' action. Though user-machine interaction is an important aspect of interactivity, it alone is not adequate to capture the concept of interactivity, since the emergence of more advanced technologies such as the internet. Uh, in computer science, interactivity refers to softwares which accept and respond to inputs from human, for example, data and commands. And interactive softwares includes most popular programs such as word processors or spreadsheet application and so on. Then in terms of user message perspective, interactivity can be discussed at three levels: non-interactive, reactive, and interactive. Non-interactive when a message is not related to previous messages. reactive when a message is related only to one immediately previous message, and interactive when a message is related to a number of previous messages and to the relationship between them. So from user message interaction perspective, interactivity is defined as the ability of the user to control and modify messages. Whereas people have little control over messages in traditional media, internet has given users much more freedom in controlling the messages they receive and allows user to customize messages according to their own needs. And then we see that interactivity has two primary features: the ability to address a person and to gather and remember the response of that person. So interactivity is the extent to which the user can participate in modifying the format and content of mediated environment in real time. So there are other three dimensions of interactivity. Uh, One is active control, and then we have two-way communication and synchronicity. So when we say active control is characterized by voluntary and instrumental action that directly influences the controller's experience. The internet features a network of linked content. Users are able to customize the information flow and jump from one location in the network to another. In contrast, the linearity of a medium such as television makes it possible for a person to watch television without taking any action except to switch channel once in a while. Although he or she still has some control, the control is not absolutely necessary and doesn't effectively change his or her viewing experience. Then we see that the control an internet user exert is voluntary. While surfing the internet, the user acts according to his or her own goals and wills. This is best illustrated by looking at banner advertising in comparison to advertising on television, because television commercial forcibly interrupt viewing. Viewers must involuntarily switch channels to avoid commercial. Even for magazine advertising, where readers have more control over whether they read an ad or not, most times readers still much turn an advertising page, to go to the content they want to read. This behavior is totally different from banner advertising, because banner advertising are put on the same page. Web surfers do not need to do anything to avoid advertising. If surfers are interested in an ad, they can click on the ad to obtain more information. If not, they can simply ignore the ad without doing anything special. Therefore, web surfing or web surfer uh, or users control their experience on the basis of their own preference. Then we have two-way communication. Two-way communication refers to the ability for reciprocal communication between companies or organizations and users. Traditional media are somewhat effective in transmitting company messages to consumers, but can hardly pass on messages in the other direction from consumers to companies. So, to gather information from consumers, a company must rely on other tools. The internet changes this old way of marketing communication and makes instant feedback possible. So customers can now give instant feedback to companies implicitly or explicitly while on the internet. So implicit feedback is facilitated by techniques that track consumers' online behavior by recording a banner ad's click-through rate or tracking the time a visitor stays at a website. Companies can effectively gauge consumers' interest in their messages and products. Uh, so consumers can also provide explicit feedback to a company by sending an email or filling out a form on company's website. Internet technology makes both giving and collecting feedback very easy, which further encourages two-way communication. Another important aspect of two-way communication is the ability to make transactions directly on the site. Although they have long been used to sell products, none of the traditional media can fulfill transaction alone. Consumers much either mail or telephone in their orders. The internet is the only medium that can be used for transactions without the help of other tools. So necessary activities in the transaction such as product display, order placing, payment can be done on the web. For digital product, even delivery can be made online. The ability to conduct transactions online greatly enhances the two-way communication between companies and consumers and makes it easier for companies to understand consumer purchase behavior. So consumer purchase behavior is one of the important elements that companies uh, come to learn through tracking. Then synchronicity, which is another dimension of interactivity, which refers to the degree of users' input into a communication and the response they receive from communication, which are similar. So traditional media provide few channels for audience input, even when they do through readers' letter or telephone calls. The time elapsed between sending the input and receiving a response is usually quite long. In contrast, the internet is able to make the communication much more synchronized. It takes only seconds for inputting a piece of information on the internet, such as typing in a search keyword on a search engine, to getting a response, such as the search result based on the keyword. Many websites also allow users to customize pages. Users can indicate what content and layout they like and immediately be able to see the page exactly as they want it. We see that system responsiveness is essential to this dimension of interactivity. To achieve synchronicity, the system, whether it is a website or an email server, must be able to respond to users' action and request in a timely manner. Because of the technological limitations and the pitfalls of human fulfillment of technology, there are occasions when synchronicity cannot be achieved even on the internet. For example, a user may click on a link and receive nothing more than a page not found error message. Another example would be a significant delay in email communication because of a server error. And therefore, maintaining a responsive system is important to create a synchronous and interactive online experience. In defining interactivity, it is necessary to distinguish between structural and experiential aspect of the construct interactivity. The structural aspect of interactivity refers to the hardwired opportunity of interactivity provided during an interaction, whereas the experiential aspect of interactivity is the interactivity of the communication process as perceived by communication parties. For example, from a structural perspective, synchronicity may involve maintaining appropriate server structures, providing adequate bandwidth, and ensuring correct linkages between documents. How synchronized users feel the communication is. This may be influenced by the speed of users' internet connection or the user's expectations, which cannot be controlled by the company. A similar distinction exists for active control and two-way communication. On the one hand, companies can offer consumers more control opportunities by making the structure of their websites more flexible and avoiding annoying pop-up ads. On the other hand, consumers may not always be motivated to exert control and thus do not feel a higher level of control. Similarly, not all consumers will take advantage of online feedback mechanism made available to them. This may be because they do not feel the need to communicate with the companies or because they are concerned about the privacy. By distinguishing between the two aspects of interactivity, companies can better utilize the controllable elements of interactivity and understand the uncontrollable elements which may produce effects different from company expectations. Then we see that not only is interactivity a fundamental difference between traditional uh, media and online media, but various online tools, new media tools, also differ in their degree of interactivity. So, to illustrate the dimensions of interactivity better, we can compare some of the popular forms of online marketing tools on their degree of interactivity. These popular tools are internet presence site, uh, like company websites, then web communities, websites that serve as a channel for information exchange between people with similar interests and beliefs, online stories, banner ads, pop-up ads, then email newsletters and unsolicited emails or spam, which we call it, we are used to it spam. So we see that websites, including internet presence site, online stores, and web communities, feature the highest level of active control. You just choose to go to a website in which they are interested, and while surfing this site, they can constantly controlling their experiences. Among different websites, online stores offer the most active control. Compared with merely surfing a website, shopping tend to be more focused and demanding. Users need to pay closer attention and make comparisons and choices all the time. Email newsletters also provide users with some degree of active control, though not as much as that offered by website. A major advantage of email newsletters is that users decide whether to subscribe. Those who subscribe are usually interested in the company's product or services. Banner and pop-up ads, in contrast, use forced exposure. Worse yet, pop-up ads directly interfere with users' online activities. To avoid a pop-up ad, users must manually close the pop-up window. Therefore, from an active control point of view, pop-up ads are less interactive then our banner ads. Finally, unsolicited email provides the least amount of active control and is probably the most unwelcome type of online marketing, as users have least control over such junk emails. On the uh, two-way communication dimension, which is another dimension of interactivity, web communities rank the highest. As essential property of web communities is interaction. So we see that community members can interact with one another through chat rooms, discussion group. Although such communication uh, often occurs among customers, it offers companies great insight into their customers' attitude and preferences. Other type of websites can also foster two-way communication as they carry customer feedback forms, company contact information, and a customer satisfaction survey. And with the ease of use of these feedback tools, so two-way communication tends to be encouraged. The emergence of web tracking technique further enables companies to gather implicit feedback from the site visitors. Similar tracking technique can also be used with banner and pop-up ads. By recording click-throughs, companies can obtain information on customer interest. However, banner and pop-up ads usually need to be combined with website to respond to users' action, making them rank lower on the two-way communication dimension than do websites. Then email newsletters offer similar level of two-way communication as banner and pop-up ads. Companies can track user responses to these promotional emails by embedding links in the messages, and users can offer explicit feedback by choosing the kind of newsletters to which they want to subscribe. Conversely, unsolicited emails offer virtually no two-way communication as the recipient can rarely have input through such devices. As for synchronicity, email newsletters do not perform as well as websites and online ads because of the delay inherent in email communication. Banner and pop-up ads are also less synchronous than website, as user must click on a banner ad to obtain detailed information. Well-designed and maintained websites, however, offer seamless communication with users, although the company usually puts the materials on a website onto the web well in advance. By designing a responsive system, the company can promote a sense of real-time communication. So this is all for today. If you have any difficulty in understanding any part of the lecture, drop a message in the common WhatsApp group. Thank you.